NBC News and the Washington Post recently reported on a cluster of side effects from GLP-1 drugs being called Ozempic personality. And that's described by people who use it as a reduction in drive and motivation to seek activities they once enjoyed. David Knapp, founder of the GLP-1 focused podcast, On the Pen, told NBC he discovered he was no longer seeking out the things that once excited him after years on the medication. And physicians across the country are saying they're hearing identical reports. So why does this matter for leaders in business? Well, about 1 in 8 Americans are currently taking GLP-1 drugs, according to a November 2025 KFF Health Tracking Poll. Most companies treat this as a healthcare cost issue, if they're thinking about it at all. Behavioral science points to business implications that are far more significant. A meaningful share of the workforce is now operating with a neurologically recalibrated motivation system. The recognition programs, team rituals, incentive structures most organizations rely on were designed without that in mind. To understand why, you need to understand what GLP-1 drugs appear to be doing to affect the brain. Kent Berridge, a neuroscientist at the University of Michigan, whose research defined how the brain processes rewards, draws a critical distinction between two systems. Liking, which is the hedonic pleasure you feel when you get a reward, and wanting, which is the motivational drive to pursue that thing in the first place. Dopamine, which is long assumed to be the pleasure chemical, turns out to be more central to wanting. It's the system that makes a bonus at work feel worth competing for, a promotion feel worth working towards, and a team celebration feel worth attending. GLP-1 receptors are distributed throughout the brain's emotional and motivational centers, including the dopamine pathways that drive effort and reward-seeking behavior. Derek Daniels, a professor at the University at Buffalo who studies GLP-1 effects, says that in animal models, these drugs appear to turn down almost any motivated behavior that we can imagine. So it suppresses our motivation. As Dr. Drew Pinsky explained in April 2026, GLP-1 users often report that they still like it, you just don't want to do it. So motivation and drive disappear even when the capacity for enjoyment remains. Most organizational reward systems were designed around shared assumptions about how humans respond to positive stimuli. Celebrate wins with team dinners, acknowledge milestones publicly, drive performance with outcomes-tied bonuses. These approaches work because they tap into dopamine-driven wanting circuitry. When that circuitry has been recalibrated, the same triggers, they just land differently. Swiss chocolatier Lindt analyzed purchase data from GLP-1 households in 2025 and found that those customers were increasingly spending on premium chocolate while cutting back on overall consumption. Their CEO described that shift as a less is more mindset. So choosing experiences that feel satisfying over volume-driven indulgence. That same recalibration is appearing in how some employees describe what actually resonates. Less pull toward the ritual of the team happy hour, and more responsiveness towards recognition that's substantive and specific. The design question for leaders is whether your culture depends on dopamine triggers or on something that runs deeper. So here are 3 things to consider doing. First, audit your incentives. Review whether your recognition programs, team events, and incentive structures rely primarily on dopamine triggers like food, competition, public announcements, or more on intrinsic motivators like meaning, mastery of knowledge and skills, and autonomy. These hit different neurological states. Second, redesign celebrations. Team rituals centered on food and alcohol may need a parallel track as well. Non-food centered recognition, for example, focused on the work's meaning and the team's shared purpose, delivering more meaningful experiences for people. And then ask versus assume. Create space for employees to name what they care about rather than running everyone through the same playbook. Customize incentives to build cultures that perform across a more diverse motivational spectrum. What GLP-1 drugs are surfacing is something many thoughtful leaders already suspected. Durable cultures built on meaning and transient cultures built on more superficial triggers. Here's what to do this week. Look at the 3 recognition moments or team rituals your organization uses most consistently and ask what motivational assumptions each one's built on. Identify one event or incentive that depends primarily on food, alcohol, competition. Then design one alternative that speaks to meaning mastery or team purpose instead. Motivation designed for yesterday's brain may fall flat in tomorrow's biologically altered workplace. That's the reframe so you can leapfrog the headlines, your leadership, and your business. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and find me at sorenkaplan.com.